get started. I don't know that we need to do full introductions of everybody, but I think if you are new and you want to come off mute and introduce yourself, we would love to know who you are.
I'm Iris Steinberg. I'm from Southeast Michigan Council of Governments, and just here to find out a little bit more about what people are doing.
Awesome. Thanks for coming, Iris.
Hello, my name is Alexis, and I'm from Traffics, and I'm just, first telework meeting with the council to learn more, to bring back some information to share with my team.
Great. Glad to have you, Alexis.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Christina. I'm sorry for being late, and I didn't know you guys would look so cute. I just came from a run. Sorry. Welcome to Telework. Just kidding. My name is Christina Valenzuela, and I'm with WSP. We are doing the IE Commuter Project. I also sit on the Southern California chapter as the VP, but I was super excited to be part of the Telework Council. IE Commuter actually has a T program, which is a telework program that we promote to the employers, and I've got questions for you guys that our group have asked. So I can put them in the chat or I can email them, but any help would be appreciated.
Awesome. Good to have you, Christina. And I think that was a wonderful prompt. The idea of today's meeting topic is to be around robin, where if you've got a question for the group, that everybody can kind of chime in and answer, hopefully as it relates somehow to a hybrid work model. So if you do have questions, feel free to go ahead and put them in the chat. Myself and Robin and Johan pulled together a few questions in preparation for the meeting. But obviously, if you've got questions, we want to make this as beneficial for you all as it is for us.
Good to know. I will put them in there now. I've got a list.
Perfect. Anyone else new that we want to make sure we say hello to?
Hi, I'm new. My name's Lisa Ritchie. I'm with Maricopa County out of Arizona, and I am here to collect information, bring some new ideas back to the county as part of the travel reduction program, and just to bounce around ideas. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Great. Well, anyone else who's new, feel free to come off mute and interrupt me. I didn't see anybody else's camera turn on, so I'm assuming we're probably good. We have Amanda here from ACT National to talk a little bit about the hybrid work document, but I know that she has a few national updates that she'd like to share with everybody as well.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Brangwin. For those who don't know me, I'm ACT's Membership and Communications Coordinator. But I recognize a lot of names here, so I'm sure we've emailed or had a phone call or met in person at a conference. So for national updates, let me see what we've got going on. We recently announced that the TDM Forum is going to be a virtual event at the beginning of December. It's going to be on Tuesday, December 14th. It'll be a half-day event. I believe the time is 11:30 a.m. Eastern to 4:30 p.m. Eastern. So we will have a keynote speaker. We'll have some concurrent sessions. And we actually will be sending out more details on the program later this week. But registration is open. It is only $45 for ACT members. So we hope that everyone can join us. And unfortunately, we weren't able to meet in Atlanta this year, but hopefully next year. We've got our fingers crossed. Some other upcoming events. We do have a webinar scheduled for November 4th, but we don't have the content finalized just yet. We're hoping to get that finalized this week. If not this week, it'll be next week. Registration will open up for that. And then, let me see, we have a TDMCP. Our next round of exams is going to be February 14th to March 13th in 2022, and applications are open now. And so if you haven't gotten certified yet, we definitely encourage it. But our next round of exams is coming up soon. And finally, committee nominations are due on Wednesday. So ACT has, I think it's 7 committees that works with the ACT National Board to develop strategy and kind of make recommendations to the national board. And it is open to any ACT member who chooses to join to serve on the board. We have a committee for finance. We have a membership committee, our newest committee, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so we have some more information on that on the website as well. And I think that's everything for now.
Awesome. Thanks.
Unless anyone has questions.
I see there's one thing in the chat, but I feel like that might be Christina's questions. Perfect. Jumping over into the hybrid workplace document, if for those of you that are newer around here, we had some questions that might have come up via email or in a previous meeting, where there were some questions about what are these different strategies that companies are considering for hybrid work models? Is there a resource that we can send employers or people we might be talking to? Can we send them to a resource or something that is an ACT resource that will help people figure out or kind of review the hybrid strategies and see where they might want to go get information or consider what might work best for their workplace? And so the chair or the council leadership, as well as a handful of members, put our heads together and created some definitions and put them together. And Amanda has put them together and made a beautiful like one-sheeter that highlights some of the traditional hybrid work strategies, as well as kind of supporting strategies that may complement an existing hybrid strategy. So I don't know, Amanda, do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just downloaded, a more up-to-date document. I know you gave me a few edits last week. They were only minor though, but I have the most final version now here. Can everyone see this?
Yeah.
Okay. I wonder if I could zoom out maybe a tiny bit. So this here is the first page, which kind of just goes over it's kind of 4, categories. And then the second page kind of goes into examples for these options.
Awesome. Thank you, Amanda, for the short tour.
Oh, that's nice.
Of course.
Yeah. So I think as it is, Amanda, you'll be able to upload it into the resource documents in the Telework Council page. Is that where it will go on the ACT site?
Absolutely. So we'll put this in the Telework resources page. We'll put this on, we have a main publications page as well that we'll put this into. We can post it into Connect. We're really excited to launch this. I can leave it open for, final edits for folks on this meeting. If they want to take a look at it, we can send it out to the people who have registered for this. And then hopefully get this out sometime this week for any last minute edits. But it's gone through a couple rounds. So hopefully there's not too much left, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea to send it to the folks on the call. If anyone has any additional thoughts, as you can all imagine, we all call things different things based on where we are and who we're working with. So that was a comment that we had made at the beginning, that the terminology may very much differ based on where you're working, who you're working with, or where you are geographically, but hopefully that the content is really helpful for businesses trying to decide what their hybrid work strategy might look like moving forward. Awesome. And then two to the hybrid work document was hopefully an idea of trying to identify some good case studies of how people are putting their hybrid work policies into implementation, and how they may be using some of those support strategies in addition to their hybrid work strategy. So I think, as we all know, things have not necessarily gone the way we wanted it to go in 2021. I think as we start to see a bit more normalcy, hopefully in 2022, to see what work plans really look like moving forward for businesses for telework and hybrid work strategies, hopefully that will be a kind of part 2 supplement to that document there. So any questions, thoughts, or concerns on our hybrid work document? Round of applause to Amanda for putting it together and making it look beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Very nice. Very
I mean,
nice.
thank you to the council for developing the content. That's definitely the heavy lift on things like this. Makes my job easier. So I appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. Well, the reason we're hopefully all here today is to do a little hybrid work round robin. So this was Johan's idea, which I thought was really great, because usually we have a pretty chatty group. It feels a little quiet right now, but I feel like as we get into conversation, I have a feeling this group will get chatty. And so we thought we would just pose questions to the group and give everyone a chance in the round robin kind of engagement here. Give everyone a chance to answer. Let's all try to keep our answers on the shorter side, from the 15 to 20-second range, and try not to jump in again until everyone else has answered. Hopefully you'll have either an example of maybe what your own organization is doing, or maybe you're working with an employer who's doing something that answers the question. Maybe you read an article, really, however your sources of information, I think we'll all gladly take them as a way to try to help answer some questions and figure out what folks are doing in the hybrid workspace. So no problem, Lee. Hope you feel better after your booster there. So here we go. I've got the first question, and then Christina, I'll be sure to jump up and take a peek at some of your questions too, so we get those. I'm most curious for folks who may be implementing hybrid work arrangements. How is flexibility being decided? Is it being decided by an employee who says, I want to work this many days a week? Or are you seeing more from an employer saying you can work from home this many days per week? I'm curious if anyone has seen one or the other, or even just general trends from working with employers.
This is Christina. I think what I've seen at WSP is they're giving a suggestion. The employer is giving a suggestion of what they'd like to see, like come in 3 days a week, or come in 2 days a week, and telecommute 3 days a week, and starting there. And I think a lot of the time that opens it up to the discussion to where employees feel more comfortable to say, I mean, me personally, I'd be like, no, I'm good. I can stay home 5 days a week, right? But it kind of opens it up on the employee side to say like, no, like just kind of give their suggestions a little bit more. I think if an employer is to put a suggestion out there first, then the employees might engage a little bit more.
Absolutely. Hi, this is Robin. I just wanted to share that the employers that I've been working with have done a bit of a mix as well, where they have had, taken polls, surveys for their employees, asking them what their preference is in terms of, what they would like to do. And then there's sort of the executive leadership teams kind of getting together and, trying to determine if those requests are feasible or where they see the organization going. So definitely a mix.
Here, Allie, I'll jump in there real quick just to give you a little bit of idea regarding Washington, D.C. region. Most of the employers right now are dictating when they're going to come back to work and who's teleworking and who's not, depending on their job title. Right now, the feds are supposed to come back to work on September 1st. Had meetings with them last week. It's been pushed back now to January 1st, and now we're hearing the Navy itself will not be until March 1st. The Navy, the military is pretty much at a 40% workforce. and they're at Bravo level, which means that they are considering, if the COVID numbers don't come down, I'll moving that up. But the military is saying March 1st, they will only bring back 75% of the workforce and 25% will remain teleworking.
So we did a employer survey, call it a survey, for our particular TMA for our primary client, and for the organizations that responded that they would have sort of a hybrid work program or something that qualified similarly in the future. We had a split about half that were having those decisions about when people would be in. Those were made at a department level, like a leadership level, in terms of specifying frequencies of how remote people would be and how often. And then we saw a kind of split from there. The other half were split across individual employees having that discretion for themselves. That was about 20%. Managers having that discretion for their teams at 20%, and then 10% of organizations that were making that at like a executive leadership level for the entire organization. So definitely a bit of a split, but it seems like generally kind of the departments wielding maybe the most control, but that seems to also be kind of evolving a little. We're seeing a lot less consistency and rigidity than we saw 6 months ago, even for organizations that have the same policies. They're just sort of giving more discretion on how that will be implemented to managers, it seems like, the further we kind of get into this. So.
Anyone else have anything to add on how flexibility is being determined? I know there's a handful of answers in the chat, so I appreciate that.
Hey, this is Matt Meservey with the Tennessee Department of Transportation. As the employer, our policy dictates that you have to be in the office at least 1 day a week, but the remaining days are really at the discretion of the employee and the managing supervisor. So there is a lot of flexibility, but it's really determining based on the nature of your work and how often you can be out of the office.
Thanks, Matt.
Hi, this is Destry. I work with the SANDAG regional agency here in San Diego, California. Based on my work with the various employers, it has been very mixed. I mean, I'm hearing all these kind of mixtures. It's definitely playing out here in San Diego with employers trying to set the boundary, but giving some discretion to the employees, and also based on job positions. We've also have been hearing too kind of like the delay of some decisions for workforce. As much as people want to have their employees back on site, the decision has been kind of moving a little bit more forward. So we've been hearing up to like April or June too for return to work.
I might pass the next question back to you, Destry, only because one of the questions Christina had in the chat was, has anyone polled employees regarding return to work office dates? And I was curious if you're just hearing those things, Destry, if you've done any polling or surveying. Oh, you're on mute.
We haven't polled all the employers that we worked with, but based on our conversations, we're a team of 5 that communicate through different employers through their various regions. We've heard, the marks that we've heard have been September, January, April, and June. So those are the 4 months that have been popping up as we're in conversations.
Awesome.
I will add, no official surveys done with regards to this recently, but what I'm hearing is January primarily on our end.
You actually haven't heard any of ours say anything later than January, which is interesting. It's the first time we don't have a second batch of them, but interesting to hear that others have like April and other dates. So also in Georgia, and Georgia has particular approaches to these sorts of things. But
I feel like at one point, Veronica, in a previous meeting, you had reported one of the latest dates of like state agencies when they were going to return. Is that still the same in Washington?
Yeah, I just popped something in the chat, but many of our state agencies were planning to go back in September, and pretty much all of them pushed it back to at least 2022 at this point. There are generally, I would say, separately elected state officials who are not, don't have to comply with governor's directives, who are doing their own thing. And some of those folks are already back at work. And the one I know of, the office I know of that has returned to the office, they had to close down after a month in the office because they had too many COVID cases. So it hasn't been super successful, unfortunately. But they were trying to bring everybody back 5 days a week, and that's probably not smart. So.
Thank you. Michelle or Kate, I thought I saw somebody come off mute. I just don't want to skip you if we move on.
Hi, sorry. We, it's been interesting because we've done a couple of surveys, both of our employers and of our commuters. And it seems like every time we send out a survey, something happens with COVID and it changes the results. Like the results that we've gotten are skewed by the time the survey is done. Right now, I guess I can't. We're just positioning ourselves for our next employer survey. So we'll probably have a little more firm information after that. We have a few organizations that are gone back already. We're seeing a lot of hybrid coming out, and at this point, I think we're just watching and waiting to see what happens next.
Thanks, Michelle. I'm also curious. Oh, Robin, did you have something?
I was just going to say, I think that's the frustration of all of this, is that it's such a moving target. As was mentioned, as soon as you think that, you have something in place, something else happens, and, thus the delay continues. So, yeah, I think that's been one of the most frustrating things that I've heard from management with all of this. It's just trying to adjust and accommodate and as we move forward. So.
Oh, that's a good point. I'm really curious if anyone has implemented hoteling as they've returned to the workplace, and if you're hearing positive things, negative things. Has your own organization done it? Are you loving it? Are you hating it? I'm curious people's feedback.
This is Christina again. So at WSP, we actually have started a hoteling in the office. Of course, it's just, our employees, but it would be, anywhere. I know we've got several employees who, went to stationed in Los Angeles, but they were out in New Jersey and they were able to go to the New Jersey office and work. But the hoteling itself, it's pretty much an app that they sign up for. The one thing that I think took a lot to get used to is you're so used to your own office. And now that they've wiped it all out, you're just like, oh, if your office is taken by somebody, your office is taken, and you're just kind of out of it. So I think it just kind of getting used to. But I don't know if the whole hoteling will eventually be where any company can come in. I think there might be several companies that do something like that, but for us, I think it's just, you just have to sign up and get a seat, and whether you want an office or a desk, and that's kind of where we are when it comes to that.
Great. Nobody else with a hoteling experience?
We had a lot of organizations that were talking about it and interested in it, but it seems like the vast majority of them have decided to hold off on that or have implemented very modest amounts of it at this point. We've just seen a lot of them say that they're basically not making big real estate changes yet at this stage. A few of them have, but that largely happened like months ago. But the others are just there. I think they're kind of in a more of an iteration and wait and see before they substantially overhaul how they approach their space. So I think a lot of them just aren't honestly sure how often people will actually be in.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree with Johan as well.
Mhm.
And there are a couple of comments in the chat, Allie, as far as some of the organizations Mary's commented about, and Veronica as far as state government as well.
Yeah, I thought those were really interesting. Thanks for putting those in there, y'all, because I
Mhm.
mean, maybe it's because they're so large, but
Yeah, and just a quick note on what I've noticed in our state government is as they're updating any buildings, they are just making those investments as the buildings are being updated. They're taking longer, obviously, to modify existing structures, but I think they're taking the opportunity, seizing the opportunity while it's there when they're doing new buildings. And they're doing some really awesome spaces, and I'm excited to see how functional they are, just making them so easy for a remote workforce. I'm excited.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know, kind of piggybacking off of what Johan mentioned, I have a couple of companies who, when the pandemic first started, they might have been close to lease agreements ending. And so, they may have gone ahead and moved forward with that. But those who have lease agreements now that I'm working with that are a couple of years out, in 2023 and things like that, are definitely thinking through and making plans for possible changes.
Yeah, I'll add to that. The U.S. Navy, particularly NXA Pax River, which has 50,000 employees, 25 inside the gate, 25,000 outside the gate, has the potential of bringing a couple more programs in from China Lake. And they were hesitant because they didn't want to get any more buildings outside the gate. They'd like to keep everything indoors. And now with the what's going on here, they are considering, and we've been talking about doing the hoteling, and it's probably where they're going to go. They'll be able to bring those programs now without having to go out and create new leases and have those individuals within inside the gate. And just there is a lot of real estate changing going on down here around Washington, D.C. I mean, our Charles County Chamber just put their building up for sale. They're no longer going to have a building. We're doing everything virtual, and then once a month we'll meet doing what's called business after hours, which is going to be kind of interesting to see how that plays out.
Thanks, George. I think y'all all kind of started to hit on one of the questions you had, Christina, about changes in office space. And it sounds like, I don't know if anyone else has a different experience, but people at the beginning of the pandemic made their moves then. Right, the early adopters, and it seems like a lot of other folks might be kind of holding out at this point to see what happens. So I feel like if we did have any numbers reported on changes in office space, they might not be legitimate, right? Kind of like when is my company going back to the office for real? It's that kind of same question where the answer changes based on whatever variant or news story comes out. Anything else on the real estate side before we jump into another topic? You guys are a lot quieter today than I was expecting.
I was just going to share the numbers from our thing on this particular question. Sorry,
Yeah, that'd be great.
Again, we didn't have like a huge response rate here. They're mostly large employers. So there's not a large number of them, but yeah, we had 60% of our employers weren't doing anything to change their space. 30% were redesigning it in some way. 19% had implemented hoteling or flexible desking. So that's a solid amount, but we also know that most of those, like they're doing pockets of it. 14% downsized office space to some extent, and then basically one company relocated. So we did have nobody increase their footprint, but that's probably not surprising.
All right.
Thanks for sharing that, Johan.
Yeah, I was gonna say for context, Johan, you said you were in Georgia, but do you want to tell everyone where you are, who doesn't know who you are?
Oh yeah, sorry. I manage a TMA, a suburban business district, like 140,000 employees, mostly kind of white collar corporate headquarters. So.
Christina, I don't know if we'll be able to answer any of your other questions here specifically. I can probably point you to some potential data sources. I just want to make sure I didn't miss any of your questions as we're talking through things. So if
yeah, whatever you guys can help on, that would be perfect. Yeah, if you could send me some resources or data sources, that'd be great. It's just kind of hard to get them broken down into the Inland Empire.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know about the mandated return to work and percentage of flexibility. That would be really interesting to see. I don't know how to get that stat, but I'm not certain.
Well, whatever I find, I'll be sure to share.
Okay. Perfect. I was kind of curious for folks who are considering a hybrid model moving forward. And this actually came from a peer of mine from our Commuter Services of Pennsylvania program. She was curious because she couldn't join us today. Like, how is the promotion of other travel options going in tandem with a hybrid work policy? So are employers still supportive of promoting carpooling or transit on the days that you're coming into the office, or do they seem to not always be a similar conversation kind of from the employer to the employee? They actually have, for context, in the area that they actually have a group of ETCs who get together, I think on a once a month basis to talk about their telework programs and their hybrid work programs. So she sent me a couple of questions that some of those employers were asking each other. And one of them was, how are you talking about the other travel modes when you're implementing a hybrid work program?
I can start. I try to answer the question. So this one again is mixed. Ours is really dependent on the employer because some employers actually have policies against ride sharing, whatever their company's level is in terms of the pandemic. So we have some that are pretty strict and will not promote it because it's confusing if a policy not to ride share and they're promoting it. So that's one type. Another type is expect their workforce to be on site, but again, because of the messaging from just regional, they may not want to kind of promote it outright. Will help people if they have questions, or at least be able to promote best practices. But it's not like, please try this. So we actually had in the last month, there was Rideshare Week, and we had to include the option of Clean Air Day because we want to be respectful of those employers that are not promoting any commuting to or from the office, but gave them the option at least to say that they're teleworking as a way for them to take part in some type of regional event. So it's been a mixture, really.
Yeah, I was going to add on what Destry just said. 3 of the counties that I manage here in Southern Maryland, outside of Washington, D.C., they are prohibiting anybody from carpooling or van pooling. And we are a federal city where 78% of our residents work out of county into Washington, D.C. I have no van pools right now running. They are all suspended. Our commuter buses, we have out of the 3 counties, 300 daily trips Monday through Friday. Typical ridership numbers we hovered between 80 and 95%. We're sitting at 21%. But I am marketing, and I'm not spending a whole lot of money, but I am marketing called Commute with Confidence, just to keep the word out there about carpool and van pool and using transit. Because when you're out of sight, you're out of mind. So we got to keep bringing it up.
Yeah, and I'd like to piggyback off. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, George, I think that's a good point, and I agree.
Yeah, I do too. I know that we do. We just lived through rideshare. We're going through rideshare month right now, and we do have quite a few employers are still engaging in it. But that's one of my big personal passions is to make sure that that does stay talked about, because when it does come back to everything being normal, we hopefully, you know, we don't want to lose that, because the hardest thing to do when it comes to, you know, especially for an ETC and, you know, promoting that ride sharing option, is if they stop, it's just so hard to get them to do it again. And so if we can just keep, I've been forever, even with our chapter, with our team, I've been trying to find what's that new twist that we can do. Even if we've even got like a few incentives right now to where you can telework, and then you could still, like, let's say somebody hybrids, right? So they're doing 3 days home, 2 days to the office. If they carpool or you know, take transit or walk or bike, they can still be part of that, a different incentive. So we've got a telework incentive, and then we've got like something like a let's say a monthly rideshare spotlight incentive, where it encompasses all rideshare programs, like other than telework. So we're letting them kind of double dip in those, only because if they're hybrid. So like if they're just still teleworking, but we're still kind of keeping the ride sharing aspect alive, so it's not forgotten about. Because that's my biggest thing, is if it was to, once we start forgetting about that, and people start getting their budgets cut from, you know, the ride share, then it's going to be really hard for them to get that money back. The ETCs to fight for that money to get back for their budget's going to be really, really tough. So we got to find that big twist. We got to find the new thing that's going to happen. We don't know what it is yet, but there's got to be something out there that's going to work.
I was going to mention what Christina said, is that you don't want them to lose that money that they have available. A lot of the programs in my area through the state government had a threshold for, you had to take this commute mode 60% of the time to get a reimbursement or incentive or whatever. And so I have worked with a lot of the employers to try and get that, just any sort of percentage threshold taken out, because first of all, I don't really understand why it was ever put in. I think you should incentivize people regardless of how much they take the commute mode. And I think that especially now, if you're van pooling 1 day a week, great, and you're teleworking the rest. It's flexibility is the name of the game. But then with all that also comes trying to do daily parking passes and things like that, and just trying to make things as flexible as possible. So trying to work with employers to make sure that everything is as flexible as can be.
I think safety too. I mean, if you let them know it, you know, show them the safety protocols, show them how safe it can be, let them feel comfortable. I think that's going to be one of the key campaigns, is revolving around safety. You know, that's going to keep them in, I think.
Stacy, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in. I also completely agree that we need to keep our work and these programs kind of on the screens of employers, both literally and figuratively. And we are getting ready here in the Philadelphia area to run a small but 3-week campaign of sponsorship on Total Traffic and Weather Network on radio for our Share Ride Match program. But I did want to mention that, you know, sometimes you still, even with COVID, you still can't plan on things. You know, what all we've learned, I should say, sometimes with all we've learned from COVID, there are still things that come out from left field. So as we were starting to see more employers having employees come back into the office, even on a part-time basis, and we were seeing some rise in numbers on public transportation, which took the biggest hit. We had a really awful incident on a SEPTA L train last week, which many of you may have heard about because it was on the national news. And when something like that happens, it sets you back, you know, 3 or more steps in what you're doing. And as you were mentioning, Christina, you know, we have been also trying to talk about the safety of these systems, but more in relation to the approaches they're taking to deal with COVID and keep the vehicles clean and keep people separated. But now safety, when we talk about safety, we have to be extra careful because we're going back to the previous definition of safety in terms of physical, you know, safety on the system. So it's a new wrinkle in what we're doing here, trying to get people back on transit.
You know, what I've done, if we're talking a little bit about marketing, I've changed it up a little bit with a lot of people teleworking. I started promoting school pool again pretty heavy with the teleworkers or the parents at our home. And you got a lot of, I don't know about across the nation, but in our region, the school parking lots and out on the main highways are crazy now. Parents are driving their kids and they're not getting on the school buses. And so I'm hitting these areas with a school pool program, which get these parents that are teleworking to 1 day a week or once a week. You're in charge of getting the kids, drive to school, or if you're in a walkable community, walk a bunch to school. And that's kind of a little twist that I'm putting in there with marketing on a commute with confidence as well.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea because, and I don't think it's just in our region, George, but obviously there's been all over the news, the shortage with the bus drivers, and I've seen all over the country that that's the same situation. And so many people are taking their kids to school. I'm one of them who's taking my daughter to high school every morning because she'd have to be at the bus stop at 6 a.m. And so, yeah, I think that's an important piece to maybe highlight.
Thank you. And to add on that, we had one county school board, their school drivers, bus drivers went on strike last week. And I just read today that where I live here in Charles County, Maryland, they went on strike today. So it's like monkey see, monkey do. And so you've got hit both ways. You got parents driving their kids and you got bus drivers shortage. You got bus drivers going on strike.
Absolutely.
The other approaches that we've done for alternative or all the other commute modes have been to pair it with improvements in the region. So, considering, of course, everyone's different levels of comfort and promotion, we still want to highlight things that are being done in the region, whether it's extending a trolley line or even giving them updates on our regional plan. We've actually paired that with, when we hear the faces of people going back to work, we'll have a webinar saying like, oh, just remember, here are the areas that were congested before, the levels are this now. Here are the ways you can get there, but here's the best practices. So we do kind of align that with different messages that are going out in the different departments for SANDAG and the regional improvements. And then the other way that has been very successful for us is to just also promote a lot of biking, because there's a lot of health and wellness fairs that are still going on virtually and in person that we've been taking part of. So we want to maximize the positive experience of biking within their neighborhood and hopefully help them think about biking if they're close by to their workspace. So that has also been pretty successful for us in our promotions.
Anything else on promoting other travel options? I think this is a lot of good content I can bring back to Stacy. There was a question in the chat. J. Scott Lane, after looking at the remotework.az site, which I haven't looked at yet, are there examples of local governments that are actively supporting telework through programs, ordinances, infrastructure projects, comprehensive sub-area corridor plans? Which I thought is kind of an interesting question. Jay, Scott, I know I can, from one perspective, I do regulatory reviews for a large private employer, and there seemed to be a trend at the beginning of the pandemic that if there were trip reduction ordinances in place, there was a trend that some of them were starting to allow telework plans to replace previous work plans, right, of promoting carpooling and things like that. So there was definitely a trend of that. And then I can also say there was a mixed trend as well, where a lot of those were suspended. Some were even suspended through 2024 in some of the research that I've done. So it definitely changed, and sometimes to support telework, or if it was just a general trip ordinance, might have been suspended. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add on that side. Oh, you're
Yes.
muted. Oh. It doesn't look like you're muted, but we can't hear you. Okay, she's going to type it. Destry, did you want to answer?
Yeah, sure. So Sandag actually rolled out a telework assistance program for the employers here. And it consisted of 5 different modules. So it's all the way from development, implementation to evaluation, training, and eligibility. So this is a customizable program for different employers, just depending on where they're at in their thinking about enhancing their work plan or developing a more permanent telework policy. And we've gotten great traction that we probably have like 30 right off the bat enroll in it. And we've been doing different modules, again, depending on what the need is for the employers, but it is a free service part of the their TDM management program for employers in San Diego.
Was that in response to COVID, or had you guys launched that program prior?
It was both. So we actually had a program prior to COVID to help even have employers think about telework, right? But of course, that it was slow to start. But with COVID, we did a focus group as well as some surveying through our own employers, and there was a need for some support, both at like the public agency level as well as private. So we gathered all the information and feedback from those focus groups and surveys to create these 5 different modules that can be customizable for an employer.
Allie, I'll tell you what, down here in Southern Maryland, all 3 counties are doing something. They just started last month. I'm not sure it happened across the nation, but all 3 of our economic development divisions are now offering a telework grant to employers, up to $5,000, no match, 100%. For reimbursements on laptops or internet service or anything they may have to have provided to their employees, which I think is pretty cool. Are you guys seeing that as well in your area?
George, can I just ask again? You said that that was like the economic development councils were offering those grants?
Yeah, they're part of this. Each one of the county governments, economic development. It's part of the funds they're using from the American Recovery Act. Every town, every city, every state in America got some of that money.
Yeah.
And so we all sit on a table about 2 months ago, and they need to, believe it or not, some counties got so much money they can't spend it.
Yeah.
And you got to spend it quickly.
Yeah.
So they came up with this telework reimbursement for employers, which I thought was wonderful. I'm marketing it. We're marketing through the Chamber of Commerce. And so far, we're getting a lot of takes.
Yeah, I want that.
Yeah, particularly when you don't have to pay it back and there's no match.
Yeah, that's a great deal.
Right. I'm sorry, George, you said that was funding, or was that
Well, the funding came from the Fed government, the American Recovery Act, to the counties. The counties are giving out a grant to employers.
So the employers are applying for this grant through the county, right?
Yes.
And they're reviewing all of it. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Interesting. That's interesting. Okay. Thank you.
All right, we've got about 9 minutes left. Any other questions that we might have missed or that you've been thinking you might want to ask?
I actually have a question or maybe a request. But the other thing that we've been working with some of our public agencies under Sandbag have been comparison matrix, because we want to see what everyone else is doing in terms of telework. I think no one wants to lead. And so we're trying to put together, even if it's without the name, but just what are other government agencies doing, so they can kind of see where maybe their thinking may lie. So we've been doing that kind of locally, and I don't mind sharing that, of course, without the names yet, because I think they're all thinking about it, right? But maybe if we can pull all our resources in a shared document, I think that would be helpful That way people can see that there is a variety of ways to approach it. And there's not really a right way, but there is different options that people can consider.
Yeah, I think if you would be willing to share yours without the names attached to it, if there's anything else we think we would want to collect and can just add additional columns and use that as a starting point, I think that's a great idea.
Okay, I'll put that together and then I guess send it to you to send it to the group, or what's the best way?
Yeah, you can send it to me and then I can blast it out to the group and we can put it in Act Connect. I'm not as good at getting on Act Connect as I should be. And Amanda's still here, so I wish she wasn't when I said that. But we can put it on Act Connect and I can send it out via email. Ideally, we'd want to make it so that it was all editable. So we'll have to figure out the best way to do that for everybody to access it.
Maybe I'll put it like on a Google Doc or something. So that way anyone who has that email or that URL link can edit.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Awesome. Thanks.
Great idea. That kind of helps us fulfill our kind of idea too of like what is actually happening, or what are people thinking that their program might look like moving forward, because it has very much felt like a moving target for many months now. So great suggestion. All right. Any other questions you guys have for the group? I feel like there's lots of really good stuff in the chat too. So I'm going to make sure that we get the chat transcript from ACT National after this meeting, because I feel like there's a few things I want to check back in on that you guys had typed.
And this is Christina again. If you could just send me those resources, I am working on the results of that this week. So if you could send me any of those resources so I could dive in. Any of the questions that I have, I'll be sure to share with the group next time.
That sounds great.
Christina, if you go to the Metropolitan Council of Governments website, they did it was a partnership with Baltimore, Maryland, Richmond, Virginia, within the region. They did a study, came out in July, but by the time that people got it in September, the numbers have changed. The government did not come back to work. So they have another one out right now. It will be more up to date. That will be deadline for that's like mid part of November. But if you want to take a look at some of the numbers now from the past survey, which was completed this summer, Metropolitan Council of Government for Washington will have it.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, George. I will. I'll check that out. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, with that, I figure it gives everybody a time to have a quick bio break, hopefully before your next meeting. Thanks everybody for joining today and sharing lots of thoughts and ideas. I think we all appreciate hearing what everybody else is hearing and being able to share your information. Wanted to also let you guys know that our 2022 work plan will be due to ACT probably at the beginning of December. I don't think we've gotten a date yet, but it's usually early December. So what I might also do is usually myself and Robin and Johan, we get together and just talk through some things we think the council might like to see next year. But I might send out an email to everybody as well if you'd like to join us in that meeting, because ideally we're putting together a work plan for the council that serves all of you and is worth your time. So we want to make sure we're putting good ideas in there. But I think that also goes, if you've got an idea or something you'd like us to work on in 2022, you can always contact me, Robin, or Johan, and we'll make sure to get it included in our plan. And I think that's all we got for today. So thanks everybody for sharing all that great information. And this will be recorded and will be on the Telework Council webpage probably at some point this week or next week. So if there was something you missed or wanted to check into it again, you should be able to have access to the recording.
Thank you. Y'all take care.
Y'all have a great
Thank
Monday.
you.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.